to the degree that you want something is the degree you're afraid of not having.
Yeah.
God, I wish I started when I was younger. I go, well, yeah, but you didn't. So shut the fuck up and let's
Right.
keep going.
Right.
Like, you can't.
Nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. Because it's not till then that it's really real.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is way worse than I thought. It's like, oh yeah, it's way, way worse than you thought.
Yeah.
But luckily, there's more to you than you think.
Trevor Hall, it's good to talk to you, my man. That's
Yeah, man.
This is one of those special opportunities where I get to connect with somebody not in person. Obviously, we can't connect in person, but actually see your face and connect with you and talk with you after you've been a part of the soundtrack of my life for many years. So it's a real pleasure.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's an honor. It's an honor to finally link. I know we were just talking about near misses and stuff and doing it in person, but I'm glad that we're able to at least do it at all, you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, man.
So how has this experience affected you? I'm friends with a lot of musicians, and the entire landscape of your industry has changed drastically. I mean, for one, musicians aren't really selling music anymore. I mean, it's really about the royalties you're getting from Spotify and other platforms where people are consuming your music. And the way that you guys were monetizing this was through your live shows. And now live shows just had the rug pulled out from underneath them. And, understandably so. I certainly have my frustrations when I hear that, concerts and things might not be open till 2022, which is a word that I got from the One Earth Live organizers who had talked to Australia. And that seems a little excessive to me, but nonetheless, like it's really caused a pretty dramatic shift for musicians.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very interesting, just personally, just going through it, because we had a big spring tour set up, we had Red Rocks set up, and we postponed it, I think, about a month before we were supposed to go out, and we postponed it, and then now there's the question of even, are our postponed dates going to be happening or not? But my whole kind of meditation with it all just at the moment is just trying to take it day by day. There's so many facts and, being thrown around here and there, and every day, every other hour, there's almost like a new, interpretation of what's going to happen and this and that. And at first I was really kind of, I was taking on a lot of information. I was reading, what I could and all this stuff. And then I started to get just super, well, what if, and super overwhelmed. And I was just like, oh man, I have to put this down. I have to like really listen to what this time is teaching us collectively, but also me individually,
Yeah.
And so I just was like, I just got to take it day. Yeah. I just got to take it day by day and do the things that adapt and do the things that lift me up and make my heart happy. And so I'm just trying to, kind of be more in the present moment than before and worry about, what is this, when am I going to go back out and blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of just putting that over there and trying to be here in the moment. It's interesting because you're absolutely right in regards to streaming and all this stuff. Not a lot of us artists are selling records anymore. Everything's being streamed on Spotify or Apple Music, I personally can't remember the last time I bought a CD,
Right.
So
or where to even put it. I mean, what do you do with the CD?
Yeah. Where do I put it? And where do I get one? And all this stuff. So
there's some street hustlers in New York that are still slinging CDs, but other than that.
Right. Yeah. So, we were always focusing on our live shows. That's where, as far as, income was concerned. I think for the majority of artists, that's where we focus our time. So now that that's, been taken away from us, yeah, it's scary. It's interesting. There's a lot of emotions that come with it. But I think that I think artists are resilient people, and I think that we're creative people, obviously, and we're going to adapt, and I mean, we already have adapt, with these online festivals and online concerts, and my brother Nako, doing interviews. I think you were on his Medicine TV. It's like, we're all adapting, trying to do what we can to make sure that we're able to continue to do what we love, and who knows, maybe this time will force us into or push us into a new paradigm, which I already think it has, but of creativity and expression and how we express ourselves, and how people receive and how we receive it. There's a lot of different things that can happen. It doesn't have to be this huge kind of death, I think, for us live performers, so that's the part that's the part I'm interested in. That's the part I'm hopeful for, and that's the part I'm trying to witness, from just a calm space, not a space of panic or,
Sure.
What am I going to do and all this stuff. So,
Well, that's the nature
Yeah.
of the human spirit, is that resistance creates adaptation. So
absolutely,
everything
yeah.
can be perceived as a blessing, and this could be happening
Yeah.
for all of us. And that's just a choice that we make, and
Right.
and I think that's definitely happening, not just in the music industry, but across the board. People are innovating, people
Right.
are adapting. And I think we all have the personal sovereignty and responsibility to decide, like, all right, how do I make this for me rather than happening to
Right.
me? And
Right.
that can be more challenging or less challenging, but that's the invitation that we all have, and I think that's the opportunity that this presents. So
Right.
in some ways, that's great. Even despite all of the tragedies, I just found out my family just got tested because they were starting to have some symptoms, and that's obviously scary. And all of these things are
Yeah.
causing, like, a lot of people to reflect on their current state of health, their own practices, our economic sovereignty, like all of these things that we took for granted. Now we get exposed and have to look at them fresh and be like, okay, like, all of these things
Right.
aren't given, they aren't granted, and
Right.
how do we make sure that we maintain our own individual health and happiness and all of the things that
Yeah.
support us thriving,
Right.
regardless of whatever is happening.
Right. Right. I think that's part of that's part of it's definitely the thing that I've been, I think, most meditating upon during this time. Is obviously it's a horrible, situation for so many people, either with health or being laid off or, whatever it is. But, when things like this happen, there is this kind of equalization that kind of happens, and all the categories and separate, kind of things that we've created as human beings that we take as so real and so permanent, they're all kind of burnt in a fire, and because with something like this, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire living, I don't know, in the Hamptons, or you're in a 1-bedroom apartment, and it doesn't matter who you are.
No,
And
the
it doesn't
the
matter
virus
what.
the virus doesn't look at your resume.
Exactly, exactly. And in that sense, it's quite beautiful because we're able to strip down and get into the essence of who we are as human beings and realize that we are all in reality the same, and that's kind of the gift of, like, I feel like turning towards death or turning towards impermanence, and it's definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot. It's been something that I've been writing about a lot. And so, that's where I think I find the light and the darkness almost in a way. It's just, yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like if we live our lives oriented towards the fear of death rather than towards the zest and the zeal and the passion for life, I think we've got it a little bit wrong. Like we're all going to die. It's inevitable.
Right.
But to sacrifice
Yeah.
our life to prevent the inevitable from happening in a way that we don't want, it doesn't really resonate with me, And it doesn't mean that we can't take some precautions and be mindful and be, just be circumspect about the situation. But there's a certain point where we got to say, all right, look, there's tons of perils. This world is full of dangers, big and small, and we can't continually live in fear of these dangers. We have to continue to live no matter what, no matter if the bombs are falling like they did on London in World War II, or whether the virus is coming or whatever is happening. We still have to live.
Right. 100%. Yeah. It's like, I think Ram Dass said a beautiful quote of like, death is one of the greatest gifts in life that's like left unopened. We don't turn towards it, and it's just interesting. It's a paradox, as we would say.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, for most of us, the view of death is, very limited. And unless we've really engaged in the spiritual path and have our own beliefs that we've generated, even perhaps beyond beliefs, into a knowing that, all right, well, we are the unborn and undying part of our essence. That's really who we are. And this life is a temporary experience. Then we can kind of reframe it. And then it's like, well, certainly you wouldn't want to give up the joy of this life to prevent something which is only real in one dimension of reality anyways.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Very interesting.
So what have you been, what's been the poetry, the kind of the things that you've been drawn to, that you've been writing about? You kind of hinted at it, but.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually recording a new album. I was in North Carolina for about a month recording an album with an incredible human named Brad Cook, incredible producer. And, when you're making an album, you're so consumed, at least for me, I'm just so consumed in the process. It's really hard for me to look anywhere else. It's like, you wake up and you're just putting all of your energy and blood, sweat, and tears and emotions, focusing it into this place. And I don't really have time for kind of anything else going on. It's just kind of, you're consumed. And it was interesting being there because, we started to hear more about COVID and just kind of like, oh, there's a case. And I remember his wife came in one day. It's like, oh, there's actually a case in our county, and it was like, whoa, that's wild, or oh, they found more, but because we were so consumed in this process, it was hard to kind of, give it so much attention. But we finished the album, and I remember like getting on the plane to come back here to Colorado, and like getting in the airport and like everybody having like face masks on, and I'm like, oh shit, like, is this a little more serious maybe than I haven't even been paying attention to this. Like, gosh, I gotta like get on the horse, in a way. And then I flew back here to Colorado, and like, I think it was like 5 or 6 days later, the stay-at-home ordinance happened here. And I was just like, whoa, like I just, completed this whole album. And I'm, came back home, and now I'm like here at home, and this is this huge change to our whole society and world and, the whole thing. And, usually after an album, I'm spent creatively. I'm just like, I just want to sit on the couch and watch, shows and, whatever, relax,
Mm-hmm.
But because of everything that was happening, I had this whole other surge, this whole other wave of creativity, just from, I think, thinking about everything going on. And it was really kind of wild for me. And I found myself, and because we were like stay at home, like I couldn't go anywhere. So it was almost like I was so focused in my little studio here, just making music. It was the only thing I knew what to do or knew how to process my thoughts and emotions like during this time. So it's really interesting for me because we have this group of songs that we recorded in North Carolina. And then now I'm back here and I have this whole other group of songs that are inspired from this time of impermanence and, me meditating upon those things, death, impermanence, change, and the fear of that, but also the joy of that, the joy of accepting that change, that impermanence, these things. And it's kind of funny for me because I'm trying to, do some of these songs fit with these other songs, I
Sure.
recorded? Like, am I going to have to like rethink this whole like album, Like it's just been a really crazy trip, But now that I got back home, most of the things, to answer your question more directly, most of the things I've been writing about have been about, this time has allowed me to dive even deeper into my own practice and my own path and my own connection with my beloved or, spirit. And I've really been inspired by that, that act of, diving deeper and really, thinking about these things that in my everyday life, perhaps I think about here and there, but not, all the time. And so those are the things that are kind of, have been bubbling up in my music and creativity. So it's just been really wild. I'm really, it's hard because I'm really thankful for this time, being a musician that is constantly moving and constantly traveling and doesn't really have time for a lot of other things, all of a sudden I'm able to cook my own food every day.
Right.
I'm able to like wake up in my own house and like make my own coffee and like read a book, like just little things, or like I'm able to like sit at my own shrine and not in like a hotel room shrine, like it's just all these things. And I've really noticed like, oh, bro, like you needed to slow down like way more than you thought, And so there's this gratitude and there's this thankfulness for the time, but then there's this also weird feeling of, wow, I'm lucky to even have this. Like some people are tripping out right now,
Sure.
Some people, they can't work, they can't pay their rent, they, people in my own industry, in the music industry that rely way more on live events, because that's what they do, every day, they're all, what are they doing? And so it's just everything is together, and I've just been trying to sit with that, not push to either side, not reject one thing, accept another. I'm just trying to, this is what it is. This is the dance,
Yeah.
So it's been trippy. It's been trippy.
No doubt. I noticed you have some paintings of some of the Hindu deities behind you. And
can you
Kali
see that?
standing on Shiva and
yeah,
understanding that in some of the old mystical traditions, like there was a deep understanding of the importance of the cyclical nature of things. I mean, Shiva destroys, Brahma creates, the reason Kali has all of those, necklaces of severed heads and arms
Right.
and all of these, is she's destroying that which no longer serves.
Right.
That which is ready to be destroyed so it can be reborn. And this nature of the cycle, when you actually zoom out a little bit and just understand like this is all actually in the perfect flow. We just may not have the purview and the perspective to see it yet. But if we zoomed out to the eyes of spirit or the eyes of the divine, like we could look in and be like, oh yeah, best thing that ever happened, in some way. It was exactly what was needed, as much as it could be a tragedy on the individual level, but on this kind of larger perspective, it's that. And so I think it's about managing just the different purviews, the different perspectives.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you saw her there, but being a lover of the Divine Mother Kali, it's these times are almost extremely sacred to us, because this is interpreted as, mother's dance. It destroys our egos. It brings us again to a place of oneness, and for somebody that is attached to their individuality and their ego and all these things, mother appears ferocious and scary, but to people that are trying to walk a different path, I guess, the backwards pilgrims, as we call it, they revere this almost terror. They revere these things that bring us into a place of oneness. So I've been thinking a lot about, Ma during this time. So it's very interesting.
Well, should we dive into some music and see if there's anything that calls to you here?
I just happen to have a guitar right here.
What are the chances?
What are the chances? Whoa. Yeah, geez. Let's see here. Can you hear those strings okay?
I hear it well.
Because I've been making new music, I've been playing a lot of it, obviously, because it's fresh and new. So this is kind of a love song that's on the new album.
Rain, it be falling from a monsoon cloud. All of that water coming out of your mouth. What do we see? Where did we go? Darling, will we ever really know? Darling, will we ever really know? I could see the mountains written on your skin. They were telling me something of where you've been. I felt like we were meeting for the first time. But I think that I've known you for a long, long while. I think that I've known you for a long, long while. I'm with you all of my days. I'm with you all of my days. I'm with you all of my days. Oh, oh,
You know that you called that a love song, and it reminds me, it's a beautiful song. Thanks for sharing that. It reminds me of how you can read Rumi's poetry. I'm sure you've read some of Rumi's poetry.
Yeah, plenty.
You read that, and it sounds like he's writing to a lover, like a physical lover in the flesh, but he's writing to his beloved, which is spirit.
Yeah.
And that very much could easily apply to that song right there. Like, if your beloved in that song is spirit, that's exactly right. Be with you for a long, long while, for all of your days, you know?
Yeah. It's funny that you actually bring that up, because you're definitely tapping into my meditation on this new record for me, because a lot of it's interesting. In the past, like I'm the type of writer I am, I tend to kind of be really abstract, and downloading these whatever moods and images and feelings. And I haven't too much written about my own personal emotions, my own human emotions, because I tended to, in a way, thought that they were lesser importance than whatever these other ideas I was bringing in. And for this album, it's really changed for me. It's quite the opposite, and I was writing so much about almost every song, is about a human emotion or something I went through on a personal level. And by writing about those things and by expressing those things, the line between human and divine is actually blurred.
As it should be.
And it's been a really beautiful gift for me. And I always, I think I kind of had it a little bit twisted, to push these almost personal things away, or not to give them as much importance as whatever else. So it's really interesting that you say that, because a lot of the love songs on this album, and there's quite a bit, I do feel like this is for, that supreme one, and also for my beloved, my wife, or
sure.
Or another person, and it's really blurred the line between that, and that love has become kind of there's a oneness there rather than this kind of separation. But you hit the nail on the head. Yeah,
I think that's something that Ram Dass talks about, is that we can use the love that we have, interpersonally, to actually remind us of the love that we have for the divine, right? Like, we don't need to put these in separate categories. Like, if you can fall in love with he talks about falling in love with his dying aunt, and he's sitting on the hospital bed with her, and that love was a lever that allowed him to actually love the divine more wholly. And it's the same reason that before he passed, he had a picture of Donald Trump on his altar, because he wanted he wanted to love even the parts of the divine that were difficult for him, but you can't love the divine and just pick and choose, so you got to get access to that state of love, and then try and love as much of it as possible. And
and I also think that it can be, now that I think that it can be quite dangerous to reject your human emotions. I feel like there's this thing that's happening today where with especially in the West, where we're being introduced to these spiritual traditions and paths, there's something that's happening where we feel like, oh, well, we have to, we can't be angry. We can't be sad. We can't be we have to be in this elevated place like all the time. We have to take all that humanness and we have to like throw it away or push it down. And I am certainly guilty of that, you know. Well, there's a really big plane. Oh, there's like fighter jet planes flying over us. Wow. It's interesting because when I look at the people in my life that I've met, that I've felt the most highest, I guess, spiritual feeling or godlike feeling when with them, they were the most human people I've ever met. And I mean that in the greatest sense of the word. And I don't know how I missed that, you know? I don't, you know? And so it's been really interesting to kind of turn around, I guess, and be like, hey, you know, you can't, we have to go in and through the body, you know, that's the path, and not a rejection.
That's the portal.
Yeah, it's the portal, the bowels of India. They talk about this in and through the body. And that's been something I've really been, that's kind of really becoming the theme of this album. You know, when I write an album or whatever, I don't really like before it's written, I don't really think like, oh, this album's going to be called this and it's going to be about this, you know. I let the songs come up, I let them speak, and they kind of, you know, join together, and the message is kind of revealed to me. And the past, like, you know, couple months, I'm like, God, I recorded all these songs, but I still don't know what this album's going to be about or this and that. And it's actually only within the last week or so that it started to really, like, that message of humanness, and I don't know, it's become very, very strong. So it's a joy to talk about, you know.
Yeah.
And flesh it out, because I haven't really talked about it with anybody else except my wife, you know. So
that's great, man. I've learned the hard way that whenever I try to bypass my human emotions, it doesn't work. It's just like
it never works.
It's sequestering them in a little angry cage, and then they just get larger and louder until they bust out of that cage, and they come right out of your mouth from your stomach, and they just start barking and just take over control. And
it's wild.
Yeah, you can't. It just doesn't work that way. This idea of excluding things rather than bringing things in and sending everything love, even those angry emotions, those depressed emotions, all that. Like that's the way. That's the way through, is to really just honor that part of you that is human, and know that human part is just as divine as anything that's happening in your plant medicine journey or on your altar or wherever else you find access, you know, to Great Spirit.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to recognize that, and it's just been something I've been working on, you know, for sure, on my own personal path.
All of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we make these hard lines between the sacred and the profane. And then one day we're like, but what if it's all sacred? You know? And then we're like, oh shit.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really special.
Yeah, no doubt. Another song?
Yeah, sure. Let's see here. Let's do a little, this is one of my, kind of an older tune, but has always been very dear to me. It's a song called Still Water. Take this headphone out just for a sec.
fly through the ages. Oh, 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 this is how I turn back my pages. Everything under the rain and the thunder they pour. Melodies open, the bird it has spoken in full. Down on the river, the boatman delivered the name. Now I repeat it to swallow the secret untamed. Oh, 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 can a love cut through your still water? Oh, 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 in the mountains hides a sweet daughter. Oh, 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 like a bird I fly through the ages. Oh, 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 this is how I turn back my pages. Yeah. Turn it back, go back where the sweet moon song never lacked. To back when the land was filled with warrior sweet euphoria, that was a fact. Back when I never ever counted those leaves in the trees. We jumped those seas, back when the fable was strong all night long. Back when love was the key, you see, where the boatman gave me a name. Now I repeat it, constantly feed it, I need it. All wise men seek it, in my heart I keep it. Now that the earth is turning real fast, I hold on strong just to make it all last. This storm it soon shall pass, give thanks and praise at last. That house of song is ash, bibble whispers from my past. Tell 'em all the bird is leaving its cage. Heard that word from a great, great sage on a different page. I don't speak hollow, these words are full, come follow. And if you see tomorrow, the rains will wash your sorrow. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh,
Beautiful, man. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
That song could have very well been written for right now. You know, like there's so many parts of it. I was like, oh, that's an old song, but it could have been written immediately and been super applicable.
It's funny how the songs, some songs come through, at least for me, and I really don't have any idea of what they're specifically about. You know, they give me a certain feeling, a certain mood. It's kind of like, I don't know, beyond words for me. But then, you know, sometimes a month later, year later, 5 years later, you know, the song kind of speaks its message and meaning or applies to the time I'm in. It's just, music's so mystical that way. It's so mysterious and so beautiful. But yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I think it highlights how when you really tap into any form of art, you know, that's why art is timeless, because it's tapping into these undercurrents that are common and that will resurface cyclically. Like that song will be applicable now and in some other situation, and also in the quiet in-betweens, but there's going to be certain points where you'll pull out different parts of it and be like, oh yeah, that means this. And that's what any good art does, is you apply your own framework and then you find different hidden meaning and magic in what's in there.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, I sing songs from, you know, in my own practice or whatever, sing songs from like 15th century poets, you know? So almost, you know, 500 years later, you know, those songs carry a message in this present time or whatever it may be. It's just, it's so beautiful how the sound and words can transcend time and language, and it's special.
Yeah, no doubt. What is the symbolism of the bird to you? Because a lot of us on the spiritual path have, you know, different meanings that we associate with that kind of animal spirit?
Yeah, well, I think the bird is, for me, the bird is it's many things, but I think among all it represents freedom because of being able to fly in the open sky, um, and traverse lands and but also because of that, because of its position in the sky, it also represents kind of this eternal witness, this the eternal watcher, in a way. We don't even know it's there, sometimes because we're so involved with what's in front of us or what's here on this ground level, but the bird can see many things at once, and it has no boundaries. It represents a free soul. The Baals of India, the mystical singers of Bengal, they relate. They sing songs about the bird in the heart. And how their music and their song, they're trying to catch this unknown bird that's flying in and out of their being. Whether that represents the breath or the spirit or, it's just, it has that kind of, it also kind of has that like loneliness, I feel like, to the bird, not in like a negative way, right? But the bird goes alone, and we come into this world alone and we leave this world alone. Speaking of 15th century, Indian poets that I like to sing about, one of my favorite Kabir bhajans is this beautiful bhajan that's called Ujjaiga Hansa Akela, and the translation is talking about the bird. The bird will go alone, right? The bird will go alone. The bird of this soul will go alone. It will look on this world as a mere fare. That one is it's alone. It's just freedom. It's that kind of unknown entity. I don't know.
Yeah. It's almost like alone and with everything are the same. It's like by being alone, it's lost the attachment to these kind of earthly relations and these earthly constructs. But in doing so and losing that attachment, it's able to connect to the universal, the sky that wraps around the entire earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. It's so true. So true. Because of it can't hold anything too. The bird just, it can't, sure, a bird can make nests and, gather provisions and stuff. But when the bird is in the sky flying free, like, it's left everything. But because of that, it's almost gained a greater vision, so yeah, I sing a lot about the bird, the unknown bird.
Yeah, for sure. It's a central position in most spiritual traditions.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the eagle, the condor, the raven, whatever bird is, kind of dominant in the ecosystem certainly has plenty of poetry and songs and, incantations and different hymns sung about it for sure.
Yeah, and in India too, the swan, they call a great soul a Paramahamsa, which means like a great swan, because the swan can separate, milk from water. It can take the essence, the nectar, and leave the kind of
the curd,
the unnecessary things behind. So there's so many beautiful, meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've mentioned, your affinity for the Indian traditions, and obviously I mentioned the paintings that are behind you for those of you who are listening. What other spiritual traditions and practices have you used to kind of give you insight to be able to both live your life and also create your art?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I grew up in a really small town in South Carolina, like, very touristy place, golf and tennis, and that was kind of the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think in like a million years, I'd be like, going to India every year and being influenced by these wrathful deities or something, it's just kind of a trip, but it's been a beautiful journey. I mean, in a way I didn't really have a choice, it just kind of happened and I got the bug and was pulled into it all. But even before that, to answer your question, like even before that, when I was like a young kid, I was always interested in like other ways of living. And like, I remember as a kid, I was really into karate. And I think it just represented like, I don't know, like a path, like a spiritual path in a way, and another culture that was so different from mine. I remember I was so obsessed with like Jean-Claude Van Damme when I was like a kid, and I would like watch like all of his movies. And one of my favorite movies that he did was called Kickboxer. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's like a really old movie.
Who hasn't seen
like
Kickboxer?
Such a good movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But like, the movie takes place in Thailand and he's like finds this like little Thai like guru in a way that like teaches him not just about martial arts, but about meditation and, these things in the jungle of Thailand. And I remember that was just my favorite movie. I was just so attracted to that, I don't know, lifestyle in a way, So I definitely had these hidden kind of desires for or hunger for a deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got onto when I kind of got into the Indian traditions and stuff, it just kind of exploded for me. And most of my influence does come from the traditions of Bengal and the mother worship and these kind of mystical saints as like Kabir and Sri Ramakrishna and Neem Karoli Baba and
Mm-hmm.
I was just so attracted to these people, but from that, has become such a great respect for all traditions and I found myself having the blessing of being introduced to so many different flavors of divine love, for instance, being in Australia and hanging out with Xavier Rudd and doing these Aboriginal like men's ceremonies with him, hanging with my brother Nako, who's brought me into so many incredible indigenous circles, whether in Hawaii or right here on Turtle Island, in the
Mm-hmm.
States, meeting just Lakota grandmothers right here in Colorado. It's been a really beautiful painting of the spirit for me. And I've never tried to cut any branch off the tree. I've tried to just let each branch grow. And a great teacher of mine in India said you should bring everything in. You should never exclude anything on your path. You should just bring it all into the heart, and be like a honeybee, and take a little nectar from each flower and bring it into your hive, and I've really valued that, and I've just been really blessed to be inspired by or be introduced, be brought in to so many different ways of talking to the spirit, and through that process, I've really learned that we're all kind of, I believe, we're all kind of calling to the same thing, and just in different ways or different languages. And one of my favorite parables of Sri Ramakrishna is he says, in India they have all these ghats, right? These stairs that lead into the holy river, the Ganga. And he said, at one ghat, like at a Muslim ghat, they call the water like pani. At like a Hindu ghat, they call the water jal. At an English ghat, they call it water. But are you going to tell me that the pani is different from jal and the jal is different from water? It's the same river, Yeah. So we're all approaching it in our own, we're all bathing in it in our own ways, in our own expressions. And it's just been so beautiful. I just feel so lucky. I just feel so grateful to just be introduced to the elders that I've been introduced with. And
because it may be many paths up the same mountain, but each path has its own virtue and its own poetry and its own beauty in its own way. We're all getting at the same thing, but the path by which we get there has its own, kind of grandeur.
Absolutely, and I just feel like we all have to stop with this categorization and discrimination, and we have to look at this bigger picture, like Sri Ramakrishna says, we have to cut off the head and the tail and take the essence, that's what music does for me. Music erases all those borders and all those lines, and everything is burnt to ash, in Mother Kali's holy cremation ground, and that ash it's the same. And what do we do? The Babas and Sadhus of India, they anoint themselves with that ash. They cover themselves with that ash. And that's music for me, is that kind of cremation ground, that holy cremation ground where everything disappears, all these distinctions and all this bullshit of just, it just all goes away. And I'm not even thinking anymore. And that's why it's so healing for me. It's such a healing gift. And I just feel so grateful and so lucky that I'm just able to be with music or have something like that in my life, whatever it may be, art or storytelling or, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going off tangent, but I just got really inspired, Aubrey.
that gratitude for everything that we have access to is just such an important signature of how we can apply to our life. And it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, like, can we be grateful for this quarantine and for COVID? And can we be grateful for everything that we have and the time that you get to spend reading and the time you get to spend at home? It's just so much about what you focus on, and if you focus on the things that we're grateful for, the quality of our life is going to be immensely impacted by that. And that's a choice, because we can focus on the negative and the shitty parts, or we can focus on the beautiful parts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's all a matter of our own perspective. That's
it.
Truly.
So one of the songs that you have that's been particularly impactful to myself and a lot of other people is your song "Forgive." And I think that offers a universal truth again, like gratitude. The choice for gratitude, the understanding that forgiveness is such a crucial part both for ourselves and for other people, in order for us to actually move forward and not carry the weight of these grievances anymore. So do you have any kind of personal story associated with that song that kind of led you to write it or led you to feel it?
Yeah, 100%. You're just kind of like in the zone, bro. You're just like, you're good at this.
Thanks, man.
I haven't played that song forever. But it's so funny because it's so in line with what we're talking about, because that song was written, I went to Australia and I did a huge month-long tour of Australia with Nako, actually. It was my first time touring over there, and I was really grateful to him for bringing me over. And I just played solo. I opened up his concert solo, but we went everywhere. It was wild. I mean, we went all over the East coast into the middle of Australia. Then we flew over to Perth, Margaret River. Like, we were really being thrown into it. And it was a really powerful time. It was a really beautiful month. Just feeling the spirit of that land and the people. And at the end of the whole thing, the tour got done, and this festival was happening in Byron Bay called the Uplift Festival. And I was invited to play the festival, and it wasn't just like a music festival. It was just kind of like a big gathering. And these people flew in indigenous leaders from all over the world. I mean, they flew in members of the 12 grandmothers, the Council of 12 Grandmothers. They flew in the Tibetan Gyoto monks. I mean, they flew in 2 like shamans from like the Kogi people in South America. I mean, it was just like this huge thing. And then of course they had all the local Aboriginal mobs, tribes there. And then they had us white folk who were pretty responsible for ruining their Aboriginal communities or Native communities. And they also had, and being there learning about it, they also had Aboriginal communities come together for the first time in a long time, that didn't get along with each other, and it was just this huge like meeting of rivers. And there was a lot of different panels and a lot of different discussions. And so many times I just found myself in tears just from the overwhelming emotion of what was being said, and people weren't holding back. These elders were talking about the pain that their communities have faced, and the joys, and where they are now, and their outlook on the present and also the times to come. And it was a lot. It was a lot. And I played there, whatever. I don't know why I was there. I was like just totally like learning so much, but I had a set, I guess, there, and spoke on a few different panels, but I really felt out of my, out of place, because there was just so many amazing people there. And I remember we flew back from Australia. I flew back home. At that time I was living in Connecticut with my wife and her family. And I sat down, I'm all jet lagged, whatever, I'm awake at like super early in the morning, and I just sit down at my computer and with my guitar, and the song just like came out in like an hour. I mean, it was so fast. It was just like all the emotions that I had from this conference and everything just like poured out of me. All these images that I felt, all these feelings, all these emotions. And it really embodied the mood of that place for me, being with all those elders, and the level of forgiveness that was happening, not only between, us Westerners and their tribes, but also between their own tribes, or between us and the earth. It was just so heavy. It was just so heavy. And that song was just kind of born from that experience, Yeah, it was really intense. It was very intense. But again, I just felt so lucky to be there and meet the people that I did.
Yeah. What's the hardest thing for you to forgive yourself for?
Wow, Aubrey, are we really gonna go there?
Yeah, man, we got to finish strong. The lighters are up.
Oh man, I just find it so interesting that sometimes it's so easy to like forgive other people, but it's so hard to forgive ourselves of things. It's just so interesting, you know. And even if we did something to somebody else, you know, and they forgive us, we still don't forgive ourselves for
Truth.
you know, doing that to the person. It's just so interesting. But I think that honestly, like one of the things that I've really held on to, and I've even talked to him about it, and he's total, you know, he's like whatever, you know, but is when I was young, I was really, really, really hard on my dad, and really just mean to my dad. Just I know we're all, you know, we all are kids, and we go through adolescence and rebellion and all this stuff, but my dad never wavered, you know. My dad showed me so much love and so much support through all of my adolescence, and for some reason I couldn't accept his love as in my teenage years. I just rebelled. I rebelled so hard against him, and just said, you know, just hurtful things, you know. And my wife always joked, you know, I have a really good memory, like an abnormally good memory. And she's like, how can you like remember that? Holy crap, you know, like I bring stuff up.
Like a full conversation.
Yeah. It's like, but you know, it's a blessing, but it's also a curse in a way, because I can really hold on to things,
Sure.
you know, in my emotional body or mental body. And I just wish that, you know, I could go back and take away a lot of those things that I said to my dad, you know. But you know, now we have an incredible relationship where, you know, where I just love him so dearly. He loves me dearly. And I don't think he even remembers, you know, the majority of stuff, you know, but he just never wavered. He just continued to show me love. And I think it's that regret of just like hurting or hurting somebody that just continually showed you love. It just wasn't a good feeling. It could have been anybody, but it just happened to be my dad. And I just wish I could take some of those things. I wish I could forgive myself.
Sure.
And just be like, hey bro, you were a kid. You didn't know what was up and down, you know, like if I can, you know, but for some reason it's just difficult. It's hard for me.
Well, forgiveness is a practice, you know, and practice makes a master. Like it's something that we have to continually do. And I think for me, one thing I've identified is like, if you can reframe it, that's like the antecedent to forgiveness. Like you have to get there first to have some gratitude for it. Like understanding that you being rebellious and kind of lashing out against your father allowed him the opportunity to stay steady in spite of that kind of action that you were taking. And that opportunity for him to stay steady then taught you that it's possible to stay steady even when someone is coming at you in an unfair way. And that's what a beautiful lesson of the divine masculine, right?
Yeah.
Is like to just stay steady even if someone is doing their own thing. And then that gift, not only does he get to know that about himself, but you get to know that about the masculine archetype and actually have a somatic understanding of that. So like, how perfect, right? And then from there,
I mean, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. From there, it's like, okay, maybe I can forgive now this week. Next week, I'll have to go back and redo the same exercise again. Forgive myself for it too.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. I like that, the steadiness, you know, the gift of steadiness. To be honest, I've never really thought about it like that. And yeah, it's so true. It's so true. It's just that forbearance, I guess. It's such an incredible virtue, you know?
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, you want to bring us home with a song, my man?
Yeah. Shoot, I wish I could play Forgive. I haven't played it in so long. I'm worried I'll you know, I'm worried I'll mess it up, but maybe I should play.
Don't worry, I'll
should,
forgive you.
Maybe I should play something a little more
Sure.
that I know, but should I try it and just see how far I get?
It's up to you, brother. Whatever Spirit's telling you to play.
I don't want to mess up your podcast.
Impossible.
Yeah.
It comes pre-messed up, so it doesn't. There's no worries.
Hopefully you'll forgive me. Gosh.
Yeah. The sun coming up on the earth. Open up strong and we learn. Never done, never do we waver. That's about as far as I got.
It brought me back. It brought me back to it.
Well, I'm just gonna have to like record it in a video and send it to you personally as a gift. Be like, this is your gift.
Oh, beautiful.
Let me play something that I'm a little more familiar with. I'm sorry.
All good, brother. All good.
Let's see. So this is called Moon Sun, and you know, this song is really kind of about. It's kind of taken on a new meaning too, just with everything. You know, we've been talking about what I've been thinking about during this time and impermanence and all this stuff, because this song was really kind of inspired by what they call in India and yoga the Atman, the place within the heart that is eternal. It's birthless and deathless, and you know, can't be cut, can't be burnt, can't be wetted. You know, it's described like this, that eternal space. You know, and the song is kind of about the jubilation of remembering that's within us and celebrating that. You know, between the moon and sun, this life is never done. You know, just through all our days, through all the passages of time, you know, through all of our own births and deaths. You know, that we actually house this eternal, I think, being, you know, and the main quality of that, you know, space is love, is just pure, unending love. So that's kind of what this song is about, and thinking about it in respect to these times of us all kind of thinking differently about our lives and how long we're going to be here and this and that and blah blah blah. It's definitely given me a new kind of spark. So anyway, Moon Sun.
Again, creation, clap now for the jubilation. Look at all that light you make and send it out, no reservation. Like a river we let it flow, still hot like a volcano. Mother Earth still got my soul in the hot, in the cold, in the rain, in the snow. Halo, wish on a butterfly wing. Take that crown, put it on that king. Sing like a child, no care for opinion. Real love across our dominion. Oh, so bountiful. Pull it back and let it go. Like ocean wave with power flow. Constellation magical. So this love still hold true. Now what you gonna do? I won't give up on you. I won't give up on you. Between the moon and sun, this life is never done. I won't give up on you. I won't give up on you. Oh no, I won't give up on you. Yeah. Set up my love. Oh no, I won't give up on you. Yeah. Oh no, I stand up, got both my hands up, root down strong like Mauna Kea. In the ocean, holy emotion, ride that flow, I see you later. In the park of Shangri-La, I see my mind standing holy, all those colors filled with glory. Open up and hear the story. Oh, this love still holds you. Now what you gonna do? I won't give up on you. I won't give up on you. Between the moon and sun, this life is never done. I won't give up on you. I won't give up on you. This love still holds you. Now what you gonna do? I won't give up on you. I won't give up on you. Between the moon and sun, this life is never done. I won't give up on you. I won't give up on you. Oh, no. I'll follow you. I'll follow you. I'll follow, follow, follow you. I'll follow you. I'll follow you. I'll follow, follow, follow you. I'll follow you. I'll follow you. I'll follow, follow, follow you. I'll follow you. I'll follow you.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, man. Everybody
Yeah,
out there,
man.
everybody out there, don't give up on yourself.
Yeah,
Well,
give thanks.
Don't give up on anybody.
Yeah.
Let's go. There's always a chance. There's always hope. There's
Yeah.
always love available around whatever
Mhm.
dark corner you're in, you know?
So true. Even when we want to give up on that space, it's always
there.
there, you know? Yeah,
there.
still there. Yeah.
Well, this was
Yeah,
awesome, man.
Oh man, I am so grateful that we were able to make it happen during this time. But I hope that we get to link in person when all this is over. And
No doubt.
I'm just grateful for the opportunity
Yeah, man.
to chat with you.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise. Anything you want to point people to as far as any, obviously there's no shows, so music coming up or anything you're doing
Gosh.
on the internet?
Yeah, we are, like I said, we recorded this album, and we're slowly starting to release some singles. We have a single out now I did with my brother Brett Denon called "Put Down What You're Carrying." But as the months kind of go on, we're gonna keep your eyes open. We're gonna releasing a few more songs that will lead up to the release of the album, and we're hoping to release the album this fall sometime. Which is exciting, but just all my information, trevorhallmusic.com. I'm trying to do as many live streams as we can right now to keep the music flowing on Instagram and Facebook, but that's about it. Trying to do one thing at a time.
Beautiful, man. Well, real pleasure to connect with you, brother.
Man, I'm super grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you so
likewise.
much, man. Yeah, all the best to you.
Same to you. Take care, everybody. Peace. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe. Also, share with any friend that you think might benefit from it. And lastly, go to aubreymarcus.com, sign up for my newsletter diary, and you won't miss a thing.